let us go over the answers to those questions. First thing you were to do, grade 10, was to go over Imparis and, I don't know, Memphis maybe. Start here, finish the RNA code. Here you go. That is the rest of the RNA code. Take a look. Okay, comments, questions, concerns. Okay, gentleman in the front corner, way too much talking. Yes, Luca.
The only copy of the thing like the top.
Yes.
Not the bottom.
RNA only codes one side. Yeah, you did not. All I wanted you. It starts here, stops here. You go and then end.
Yes, you don't do the bottom.
You do not do the bottom. Okay. Next question. Okay. There is. I know it's last block on a Wednesday, which means it's basically Friday. Shh. You're still talking. I'm trying to go over homework. You just call me girl. That was the secondary issue. The primary issue is stop talking. Okay, practice questions. Next question says, describe the relationship between chromatin, chromosome, DNA, and gene. Here it is. A gene is a section of DNA. DNA is found as chromatin. Chromatin condenses to a chromosome. That's the relationship. If you said something along that line, you're good. We're good? Comments, stop me if you got comments, questions, concerns. I am not going to give you a lot of time to copy everything down. You were supposed to do the homework already. It'll be in the video. You can look at it later. Okay, here we go. Next page. Questions 1, 2, and 3. Question 1 says to sort the smallest to biggest. The order is nucleotide, gene, chromosome, DNA, nucleus, cell. Where does DNA replication take place? The nucleus. When does it take place? It takes place during interphase. Mitosis is how the cell splits. By the time the cell begins to split, the DNA is already copied. This is understanding you should have had in grade 9. The DNA itself gets replicated in interphase. It gets split, the two copies get split up in mitosis. Question 4, if the DNA molecule is one code, what is the other side of the DNA code? It's this, CTG, AAT, GCA, TGG. It's not asking about protein synthesis, it was asking about DNA replication. Josiah and Dennis and Luke, are we good? Okay, Josiah, you seem like a victim here too often.
Yeah.
So it's either Dennis is bullying you, or you need to be more. I'm not trying to victim shame here, but if Dennis steals your stuff every day, maybe keep your stuff away from Dennis. If you're leaving your front door open and like, my house is getting broken into, but you never lock the door, at some point it's your fault. Okay. Next question 5. What results from DNA replication? 2 copies. How do they compare to each other? They're identical. 2 identical copies is the complete answer to 5. Question 6. Ooh, question 6 is a good one. Consider the following analogy. The genetic code is a book. The chapters represent what? Bless you. Yes, they represent chromosomes. Imparis. The sentences in the chapter represent genes, Gemini. Yes. And the letters represent? It's louder. Who said it? Same thing, but louder. Malik. Someone just said, well, I want to hear the answer first. No. Sorry, Crete? Oh, someone just said it. What? Is that louder? Yes. nucleotides. I was pretty sure I heard a masculine voice say it the first time. Molly, question. Okay, Pimparis, stop talking. That is, no, it's not. Because mitosis is prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. The DNA has already been replicated before prophase even starts. Yes. No, it is not part of mitosis. If you said mitosis as the, okay, Imparis, you get Memphis and whoever else over there. If you said mitosis as an answer to 3, it's not, no part of that is correct. It's not like a half mark. Interphase is not part of mitosis. They are separate processes. And the DNA replication is done by the time mitosis starts. Okay. What do we got here? Molecule X is what? What is this? What is Y? What is Z? You betcha. DNA, RNA, protein. Here are the functions. You could have said this slightly differently. So, Hum, are you on the same page, Ron? DNA holds the genetic code. Y holds the code for the protein. Z, the protein itself, has many different possible roles within the body. The function of protein is to go out into the job and fulfill a task. What that task is depends on the protein, and there's hundreds of them. Red blood cells, all sorts of things. If you listed some things, what you want to do is write etc., etc., but not skin. Skin's not a protein. And then how are genes involved in the production of proteins? There's a bunch of different answers for this. I didn't write anything down because there's a bunch of different ways to say it. But the idea is that genes code for specific gene is a section of DNA that gives you the code for a specific protein or group of proteins. The gene is a section of DNA that codes for a protein or group of proteins. When you're ready, flip the page. This is where the multiple choice fun starts. Okay. Question 1, 2, 3, and 4. What's the order there? A, C, D, B. You betcha. One, A, nucleotide is the building block of nucleic acid. Nucleic acid is C, large molecules made up of repeating nucleotides. D is the nitrogenous base, and the complementary base example here is adenine and thymine. Question 5, which of the following describes DNA? The answer, of course, is A, B, C, or D? It is D. It is not a double-stranded nucleotide. A nucleotide makes up the DNA. It's a double-stranded nucleic acid. Which of the following correctly identifies DNA and RNA? Number 6 is D. Number 7, which of the following are the basic building blocks of DNA and RNA? A. Nucleotides. Are you 0 for 7? Is he getting cooked or is he cooking?
Could you explain what A is again?
What a nucleotide is? You betcha, I would love nothing more. Nucleotide. Okay, guys, Malik asked a question everyone needs to be at least aware of the answer to. What's a nucleotide? This is part of the reason I hated biology. I didn't actually hate biology. I loved biology. I was very interested in biology. I, like every other child I've ever spoken to, really wanted to study animals as a child. Kids say this different way. I want to be a vet. I want to be a marine biologist. I was in the marine biologist category. But then you get to biology, you're like, I have to memorize all these things. This is a nucleotide. You need to know that. That when you say nucleotide, this is the structure that you need to be able to picture in your head, and there's no way of getting around it. It's just a memorization. Nucleotide, that picture. Or this picture. Depending on what this nitrogenous base is. Some of them are single circles, some of them are double circles, or rings rather. Adenine and guanine are double rings. Cytosine and thymine are single rings. But the phosphate sugar nitrogen base is the whole thing is a nucleotide. What is the purpose of what? A nucleotide? So these are the building blocks of nucleic acids, DNA and RNA. The sugar will tell you if it's a DNA or an RNA. If the sugar is deoxyribose, it's DNA. If the sugar is ribose, it's RNA. These, the phosphate group and whichever sugar it is, gives you the backbone for the nucleic acid, keeps the thing together, the structure, and the nitrogenous bases clip together in the middle, keeping the two halves together. So it actually has, it's a big answer to that question. That's the complete answer. The different parts have different jobs. So that's what a nucleotide is. A nucleic acid is, like DNA is an example. All of the DNA is an example of a nucleic acid. RNA, much smaller molecule, but is also an example of a nucleic acid. An acid made of nucleotides is what a nucleic acid means. Question 8. Which of the following are the nitrogenous bases in DNA? The answer, of course, there is D. If the question said, which of the following are the nitrogenous bases in RNA, the answer would be what?
C.
Well, which one is it? It is A. Because uracil replaces thymine in RNA. It is not, thymine is not there. It's uracil, but the other three are still present. So this here would be RNA. Which one's the same? Okay. Okay, when you're ready, flip the page. Here we go. Number 9, which of the following identifies structure 2? A, it's a sugar. Depending on which sugar it is, tells you if it's DNA or RNA. Which of the components make up the sides of the DNA molecule? That answer is A, 1 and 2. Which of the molecule takes part in complementary base pairing? That is letter C, structure 3. And then which of the following describes how DNA and RNA are similar? The answer, of course, is C. RNA does not have genes. RNA is a gene, or the copy of a gene. Okay, flip the page, number 13. 13 is A. 14 is D. 15 is B. Comments, questions, concerns on any of those three?
No.
Sorry? None. 16 is. All of you should be able to answer 16 correctly. If you didn't, I've done something horribly wrong over the last several days. 16 is C. Your biological parents is where you get your genetic information from. 17 is B. Where is the genetic information stored? It's stored in the sequence of nitrogenous bases. If there are no questions, flip the page. "18 is C. 19 is C. 20 is D. Comments, questions, concerns on any of those? There are 0 questions. Lexi says there are no questions, and none of you better ask any because she said so. With so much authority, I love it. 21 and 22 are A and B, respectively. Soham, Lexi said there's no questions, you're not allowed to ask any. Oh boy. Mr. Keeley is mad. Hey, Elijah, I'm going to throw you one of these, and you need to. I'm going to throw you another one of these. Elijah, one of those is for you, and one of those is for Mr. Keeley, who's going to come out that door in a second. He looked like he needed a chocolate. You guys keep an eye out for him. As soon as you see him, he gets one of those. Yes, Luca. No. Elijah's doing me a favor, and Mr. Keeley's in a bad mood. Okay, here we go. 23 and 24 are A and B. Comments, questions, concerns on 23 and 24. There he is. Mr. Keeley. Elijah has something for you. You can tell me later. You had that look on your eye, yeah? Yeah? Yeah. Do it. Thank you, Elijah. Okay. Comments, questions, concerns. Lemise, you had a look in your eye that says, I have a concern. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot hear Lemise. Did we talk about number 24? It was a footnote to a comment that was made on the very first day. But it is connected to ideas that you would have looked at in grade 9. So, I mean, that's why I'm tossing a question like this in your homework so we can discuss, as opposed to on a test without giving it any context. As soon as you see in biology anywhere, as soon as you see the word variety, your mind should go to the concept of diversity, because that's what a biologist is always getting at. As soon as they talk about variety, they're talking about diversity. Now, what kind of diversity? If they're talking about the diversity of salamanders, I mean, let's replace that word with students. If I was talking about the variety and abundance of students in a classroom, you, the students, are obviously diverse. I have genetic males, I have genetic females, I have blondes, brunettes, black-haired students, red-headed teacher. There's variety here. I am German/Russian. We have some Spanish and Indian and Mexican and all sorts of different, people from all over the place. But same species. So the variation is not species variation. It comes down to the codes that make you up. What makes you have black hair while Olive has blonde hair, and I am white and then burn really easy, and some of you have more olive colored skin and will tan forever but never burn? Like, what does all that? Even though we're all part of the same species, gene variation. I will never toss that on a quiz or a test without discussing it, but now that we have, that's fair game. Okay. Nope. I'm not telling you it's not, but I'm not telling you it is. It will be for sure on your chapter test. 100%. I haven't told you. It'll be before end of day Friday. Sorry? It'll be before end of day Friday. Because it's more fun this way. Then you should study tonight. I have told you there will be but that is the least effective way to study. So what you're telling me is I want to cram. No, this is why I don't tell you. This is why I will tell you that a quiz is coming, but I won't tell you when. Because effective studying, Malik, Soham, effective studying is not cramming. If I tell you that there's a quiz coming at some point in the next 4 days, on the off chance that it's tomorrow, maybe you review tonight. But if you review tonight and it's not tonight, if you review tonight and it's not tomorrow, you've done a little bit of advanced studying, and then the quiz is on Friday, so maybe. So then you're like, Thursday I could do something. And now you've perhaps studied 2 days in a row, and some of it isn't cramming. So that is the effective way to actually learn stuff. If I say quizzes on Friday and you're like F science till Friday morning at 6 a.m., you're cramming, and that's the least effective way to actually learn how to do anything.
Just like if they ask you say it's tomorrow and then it's not tomorrow, that you find it. Yeah, just do that.
No. I don't like lying.
But it's helping us.
I have told you it'll be by end of day Friday. And the rugby players know it's not today. Because I told them that when they told me they were leaving. It's Thursday or Friday. Okay, find me this page. We're going to start talking about heredity. What's heredity? Great question. Let's talk about it. Okay, here we go. Here we go. So, we are going to start heredity by talking about a bunch of different traits that you either have or don't have. No, you said you had to leave at 1:45. It is 1:33. I got 12 more minutes. Okay, here we go. So, as we're going through this, I'm going to pull up something on the screen. I am not going to have this page up on the TV. I'm going to a bunch of Google image searches I'm going to show you. What we're going to do is, for each one of these traits, the wording in here says, for example, number 1, tongue rolling. I don't want a show of hands. I want tongues out of mouth. Can you roll your tongue? Stick your tongue out and either show me you can or can't. Yes. Tongue rollers. You're the freak with the W. I love it. We always have one of those. I love it. Okay, we've got yes. I did say that. Sorry to draw attention, but Lexi, that is so cool. Do I have any U tongue rollers? Number it. Yes. Can you roll your tongue into a U? I cannot. Olive can. In a perfect world, yes. Gemina, Dennis, who can roll their tongue into a W? Yes? Yes? Okay. No, so, guys, not everybody can. I cannot. I was born with, so you guys know there's a flap of skin underneath your tongue? Okay? So you've got that flap of skin underneath your tongue. On me, when I was born, that flap of skin went all the way to the front of my tongue. If you asked me as a child to stick out my tongue, this is as far as it would go. That is the literal definition of the word tongue-tied. Yes. And this is a genetic trait. So not only can I not roll my tongue, I could stick my tongue out this far. No. My dentist actually had to go in there and cut that flap of skin back because I was getting it caught between these two front teeth. It was wildly uncomfortable. So I finally went to my dentist and I was like, look, man, you got to deal with this. So he was so excited. He pulled out the laser scalpel. He's like, I've never got to use a laser scalpel. Zap. The smell of burning flesh coming out of your mouth is gross. So he did it. Yeah, well, when the freezing wore off, it did. But what this means is I knew. So I had this done in my 20s. It was uncomfortable. I knew when my kids were born, this is a genetic trait. I need to look for this in my kids. So daughter's born. She's sitting in the NICU. They're like, yeah, okay. Or you get to go home in a day or two. I said, sweet, before we leave, I need you to look under her tongue and tell me if what I'm seeing is true, and please get rid of it. Natasha had the exact same thing I did. But as a baby, babies heal so fast. I mean, and the entire world is pain when you're a child. When you're a baby, for hours, everything is pain. You were outside of your mother's womb, and so it's like, oh yeah, we can deal with that. And she'd healed by the time we left. It took me several days. Natasha had that zap, and so then we go in. Core has Jack, and I said Jack did. So with Natasha, we had to stay in the NICU. We were there a bonus week. I had lots of time to talk to the doctor and like deal with this, please. Jack, well, we were out of the hospital in 12 hours because it was a way easier delivery for Core than Natasha had been. And again, by the way, doctor, please look, and if it's there, please deal. And sure enough, the genetic code was strong. Jack was also tongue-tied. He also had that dealt with. Now, so those of you who can roll your tongue versus those of you who can't. Just because you can and your experience is that way doesn't mean it's true for everybody. And then we've got Lexi. Can you demonstrate, please, one more time? I take back what I said about you being a freak. Okay, fine. Then fine.
I didn't even know about this. So when Leon was born, they like right away checked Court like right after he came out.
Nice.
They said he's got a tongue-tie.
Yeah.
They snipped it right there in the OR.
Nice. Oh, so yeah. Oh, because you were in the OR.
Right in the OR, they did it right away. I didn't even know this. I don't have it.
Interesting. That's weird. So that would be a recessive trait. It would have to be. Okay, so there we go. So I'm sorry I said what I said, but it's so cool.
I'm not doing it. No.
Give it color. Give it color.
No.
It's so cool. Okay, so basically, for those of you who can't see what Lexi's doing, imagine someone who can roll their tongue in 2 spots. Can you do it? Yeah, we got another one. Oh, you can do it too. You're not the only one. There's 2 of you. Can you? It's so cool. I didn't know this was a thing. Like, I grew up, I'm like, yeah, people can. What do you mean stick your tongue out? Oh, I'm the weird one here. I cannot stick out my tongue. And then my friends were like, yeah, I can make it dumb with you. Okay, that's weird. So if you can do this, read the sheet. The box says, can you roll your tongue into a U shape? If so, this is a dominant trait. So all we're doing here is I want you to answer the first column. Are you dominant or recessive for this trait? Ignore the second column. Just answer the first column. Are you dominant or recessive for tongue rolling? If you can roll, if you can roll, it's dominant. If you can't roll, it's recessive. I will explain what it means to be dominant or recessive later. Just answer the question. Okay. Are you dominant or are you recessive? Neither one is good or bad. I'm not like, yeah, neither one is good or bad, but it is just a statement on a portion of your genetic code. Okay, next one, earlobes. Some of you, if your earlobes are covered by a head wear, any kind, reach under there, feel them. Earlobes can either be attached at the base, like mine. I'll walk around, I'll demonstrate this, like my earlobes are attached. They go straight over. Yours are unattached. Yours are like mine, they're attached. They go straight across the attached right at the base. Attached? Unattached. Yes. Like over here. Unattached. You're the freak. Okay. So, look at your ears. Feel them. Are your ears attached right at the bottom? Or does it go up? Or does your earlobe come down and then go up to attach to the side of your head? Look at each other. Ask your partner, people sitting if they're with you. What are my ears doing? Make my go. Okay. Figure it out. Okay, so look at the box. It is a dominant trait to have earlobes that hang down. A person who has earlobes attached directly to the side of their head is recessive for this trait. I am recessive for this trait. Mine goes straight to the side of my head. I want you to tell me in that box, are you dominant or recessive for that trait? No, you're not the freak. You're just the statistically less for one trait. You're totally normal. So many others. I'm sorry. You're gonna have that label forever. I take it back. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said it, but I find it very fascinating. You're not the only one. And now, the reason Dennis is I've been called a freak is because he was mocking aluminum. Turns out Dennis is not the player one. Okay. Dominant recessive. Answer the earlobe. We're moving on. This one is a lot harder. Okay? So read number 3. I'll show you a picture of it in a second. It says an ear bump. Some people have a bump called a Darwin's ear point. Here is where it is. It's located up top here. Some of the bumps are very obvious. Some of the bumps are not. This is a very hard one to determine. I don't think I do. Soham definitely does not be mine. Do you have an ear bump? I want to say you do. I think you do. Figure out if you have the trait or not. Definitely. Maybe not.
I'm so dominant.
Oh, yeah, totally do. Okay, do you have the trait or not? I don't think you do.
Yeah, it's really easy.
Life looks like you do. It's right here. Here. Higher. Close. you have this or not. If you have the bump, it is a dominant trait. If you do not have the bump, it's a recessive trait. Just answer the question, are you dominant or recessive for the trait? Okay, next one. Widow's peak. The widow's peak is a difficult, in some people, it's difficult. In some people, it's very obvious. Okay? It depends on the shape of your hairline. So everyone's going to have to pull their hair back and look at the hairline on the forehead. If I'm not mistaken, if you want to see what a widow's peak like, mine does. Here's a widow's peak. Okay. If you're unsure, ask someone. The really hard people, okay, guys, the hardest, sorry, I should forget you guys. The hardest people to tell are the girls with long hair. So if you have really long hair and you're struggling with this, pull it back. And you just straight across. Cool. Got one. At least got one. So you have one. Hey, so does someone up here. Rugby players, see you later. 144.
Hey, manager.
Oh, 100%. That's a strong one. I like it. Okay, I'll read them and watch it by. Oh, you don't even have to sign. Oh, okay, you're only okay, so next one. Are you going on? No, you're not. Okay, Memphis, Malik, Josiah, I will see you on Monday. Yes, he's a phone stealer. Stop putting it up because he can steal, because you know he's a klepto. Okay, here we go. Next one. The hitchhiker's thumb. Read it. It says, a widow's peak is caused by a dominant allele. If you have the peak, it's dominant. If you do not have the peak, it's recessive. Answer whether or not you're dominant or recessive. Elijah, can you shut the door for me, please? Okay, next one. Hitchhiker's thumb. If your thumb can bend like that, yeah, like Angel, you got the broken thumb. Not really. It looks like, I mean, I had Sarah Cardona and the other one can do it with all her fingers. Do you have a hitchhiker's thumb? If you have it, if you can do it, that is a dominant trait. Yes, Kenton's got it too. If you cannot do it, that is a recessive trait. It's not good or bad. Yeah, no. I could not do that. That's pretty impressive. Okay. Next one. I don't know what that is. Can you do the thumb one? I don't know what that was. Okay. 3 tenths. Science 10. Next one. Imparis. I do not have a picture for the next one. The next one is polydactyly. Polydactyly. If you were born with more than 5 fingers or toes on either of your hands or feet, you possess a dominant trait from polydactyly. I'm not going to ask you to expose yourself to the class because some people find this embarrassing. But you would know at this stage in your life if you have. For example, any one of you who went to Abbey Middle and know Mr. Beck. Mr. Beck had a 6th toe on his right foot when he was born. Immediately, if a baby comes out with a 6th toe, like he did, there were no bones in it. As a baby in the hospital, just like they cut my kid's tongue tie, they cut mine off. They cut his off too. It was surgically removed at birth for Mr. Beck, but he had a 6th toe. You would know at this stage. If you did, it's a dominant trait. If you did not, have an extra toe or finger, it is a recessive trait. Write down whether or not you are dominant or recessive in that box. I don't know what that trait is. I'm only looking at these traits. Were you missing a finger at birth? I don't know. Okay, next one. So related to polydactyly is something called syndactyly. Syndactyly is having webbed fingers or toes. If you have webbed, or if you were born with webbing between your fingers or toes, it looks like this. So like the skin between your fingers or between your toes goes further than it should. Okay? That is called syndactyly. And if you are webbed, that is a dominant trait.
My fingers always.
If you are not, then that is a recessive trait. Write down whether or not you are dominant or recessive for that trait. I'm not asking for gang signs. I want to know if at birth your fingers were grown together. Okay. Mr. Beck had that one too, for those of you who know Mr. Beck. He had both of these. Sorry?
They're friends.
We're friends. I know. His older sister taught me piano. His younger sister babysat my sister and I. His parents were friends with my parents. Sorry?
He's 6 years old now.
Mr. Beck is in his mid-40s. He's like 10 years older than me. But I knew, yeah, I know him for a long time.
Why do I have
Sorry? His kids I don't know as well as his parents and siblings. But yeah, I do. I mean, I was around when his kids were born. They would be like your guys' age. Yeah. Okay. Next one. I'm not pulling up a Google image. I am pulling up a Facebook image of a good friend of mine. So my wife and I are friends with this couple. This is Jesse and Emily. They are good friends of ours. This is Jesse, this is Emily. Okay, I would like you to take a look at Emily's chin. This is a genetic trait that is very strong in her family. Her sister loves the cleft chin. It's not a cleft palate like you might have seen. It's the emphatic dimple on the chin. I don't have one, but you wouldn't be able to tell because I don't hear it. But she's got a pretty pronounced dimple on her chin. All of her children aggressively have this trait. It's not a double chin. Double chin is one that goes like this. Do you have a dimple on your chin? Yeah, you do. Luca's got it. Dennis does not. No, stop calling people freaks. I should have done it. Yeah, you got a dimple on your chin. It looks a little different on Luca than it does on McCree, but it will happen. No. That's just, I don't think you do, but it's hard to tell because you don't hear one. Okay, whether or not you have the traits, if you have a cleft chin, that is recessive. If you do not, that is dominant. The lack of cleft chin is dominant. And so for her kids to have this means that her husband, even though he has the dominance of the not cleft, that means somewhere in his genetic code, he's got the recessive side of having a cleft. And so her kids, they're married and they have kids together, all have that recessive cleft chin. Okay, the last one is the hair whorl. This one is very difficult to see on anyone with hair longer than like Dennis. Dennis, if your hair is too long, it's really hard to tell. how it actually comes out of your scalp. Vikram's got a really obvious one. So, stop touching his head. Are you willing to let your classmates come over and look at your head? No.
Can you walk around and show us?
If you are willing to consent.
Face that way.
Hey, he's not consenting. The answer is no. Though he's a really good example.
That's dramatic.
Randy?
You know your address now.
Oh, yeah. Okay, did you guys go the same way? Yeah, they both go the same way. You guys have like the perfect length there for this. Yours goes the same way. Yours goes the same way. Any of these four guys have very obvious hair whorls. Ladies have two on hair. Dennis does too. Oh yeah, absolutely Dennis does. Luca's hair is too long to tell. Mine's too long to tell. Soham has so much product in his hair, it's impossible to tell. Hey, stop it. He has product in his hair still alive. Relax. So do you. None? Yours is hard to tell. Okay, so we don't need to look at our classmates' heads. Just look at the pictures on the screen. Now, hair whorl is on the sheet as being a genetic. If you have the hair whorl, I do want to answer the question. It says a clockwise whorl is a dominant trait. If you can, a counterclockwise whorl is a recessive trait. So if I'm not mistaken, both of you guys have clockwise whorls. That is the dominant trait. Actually, I think all of you do. Elijah, you definitely do. I think Michael, yours was clockwise as well. Dennis, yours is also clockwise. So that means you guys are dominant for that trait. If your hair is too long to tell or it's covered up, I'm not going to ask you to undo your hair. But answer as many of these as you can. So, before, a treat if you want to know, the easiest way, do you want to know? The easiest way for you to tell, especially all you ladies with really long hair, is the easiest way to get rid of part of the problem is the way you part your hair. If you really want to know, put all your head over your head and then flip it back like you're in a Miss Congeniality pageant. And then it will lay down closer to its actual pattern. And you might be able to tell at that point. So if you want to know, put all of it over and then flip it all back. And then let me look and see if she can see it. Okay, so. Yeah. And then just flip it back. Okay, there you go. Now look at her head. See what happens. Look at it would be at the base of the part.
I think you can see it.
It would be right at the base of her part. Oh yeah, no, it was clockwise.
So we'll just turn it on.
Yours is too short to do that. It's too long to tell, but too short to whip back. Okay. So on the very first day of this unit, I told you guys that we are going to vastly oversimplify certain topics related to genetics. This is the first time we're going to do it, and we're going to do it a bunch of times. The hair whorl, the way it's worded here, seems to suggest that all of these things are these singular traits are controlled by one gene. Now, I haven't said that anywhere, but that's often what gets assumed here. Like, yes, the gene for the tongue roll, the gene for the earlobes, the gene for the ear bump, et cetera, all the way down. But it's more complicated than that. There's actually, like, from what I've read, 2, 3, maybe 4 different genes that all impact how your hair grows, the pattern your hair forms as it grows out of your head. We know it's related. It seems like, I shouldn't say we know. It seems like it's related to your handedness as well. People who are right-handed, that's also a dominant trait controlled by a collection of genes. People who are right-handed seem to usually have the clockwise hair whorl. There seems to be a connection there. Left-handedness is a recessive trait. At least that's, if you look at the global population, it's what it seems like anyway. So this is the first example where we've got to be careful not to oversimplify it. Even though we're talking about dominance versus recessive, it's more than one. We know that it's more than one gene that does hair whorl, for example. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the simplest version of the genetic experiments that have been done and move our way forward. We're going to come back and we're going to look at this column, but not right now. We're going to do some other stuff first. Flip the page, and we're going to talk about a dude named Gregor Mendel and his pea plants. Here we go. So, I discovered in last block that it's actually important that you guys understand how plants fertilize. I operated under the assumption that all my grade 10s and D block were able to do that. Turns out that wasn't true. So let's talk about how plants fertilize. Hands up if you know how plants fertilize. How's it happen?
Buddy.
Okay, so you have some plants have flowers that are actually male or female. So you've got your flower, and then you've got a bunch of stuff on the inside. So there's my flower, there's green stripes, and there's structures in the middle of the flower. And it goes down, and this is where it connects to the stem. Okay, carry on. Which are we talking about? Yes. Good. So, you were very soft-spoken, but you're absolutely correct. So let's, I want everyone to hear what was just said. There are flowers, and there's different kinds of flowers. It's not asexual. Some plants are asexual, some plants are sexual. But what does sexual reproduction look like in a flower? Some flowers have overtly, let's do this. Okay? There's a male portion of the flower and a female portion of the flower. Now, this is some kinds of flowers. So this is the portion of the flower, this little bulb right here. That portion of the flower, in this case, that's actually kind of a pretty flower, is where the pollen is located. So what happens is you get your pollinator. Could be a bee, could be a wasp, could be a bat, could be some person there are places in the world that have lost their pollinations of pollinators due to pollution and habitat destruction. And so people actually get paid to go around with Q-tips, and they color here, and then they take that pollen on their little Q-tip over to the next flower. The place in the world that has to happen to them. Their career. It's a really boring career. Male portion of the flower, female portion of the flower. Flowers, race has nothing to do with it. What? Okay, someone's being racist?
Yeah.
Okay, so most plants that do this, in an effort to lure in other pollinators, they contain what down here? Nectar. So, bee. That's a bee. I don't want to hear anything about this. That's my bee. It's a really bad bee. It should be really big wings. It's a bee. I didn't ask for what it looked like. I'm telling you it's a bee. Okay, so bee says, yummy. I want this. And in the process of getting in there to consume the nectar, it has to go past this. So as it's on its way by, it picks up on its legs and fur pollen off this portion of the flower. It drinks its fill, maybe it finishes what's down there, goes off to its hive, comes, vomits, and then people are like, oh, so am I eating like plant sperm when I have honey? No, you're eating bee vomit. Because what happens is the bees drink up the nectar, and then they go back to their hive and they vomit up the nectar, and they go out again. That nectar is what turns into honey. Bee puke. It's yummy. So then this bee, still with the pollen, goes back out, finds another flower. And when it makes its way over here, the pollen that was on this bee, when it comes back to here, falls off into this flower. And this, the female flower, now has access to male flower genetic material. Now at this point, this flower is considered pollinated. What will happen here now is this flower will turn into a fruit. The flower will fall, maybe it's a berry, maybe it's a blueberry.
The flower, once it's pollinated, the flower turns into a berry. The berry then can fall off onto the ground. This berry would have seeds and stuff in it. Those seeds would have the genetic material of its parents, grow a new plant. I don't remember the structure, so I'm not drawing it, but yes, you're right. Yes, you're absolutely right. Yes. Yes. I don't remember any of those names, and so I'm trying to avoid that conversation, but yes, you're absolutely right. I'll own that. I don't remember what they're called. And at this point, it doesn't actually matter. You just need to know the nuts and bolts. Fall from here, ends up over there. Now, there are other plants that don't do this. There are plants that can what we call self-pollinate. And self-pollinating flowers can actually be like, well, I've got the male portion up here, I've got the female portion down here, and if I don't get cross-pollinated, like the bee comes here and the bee goes over there, if that doesn't happen, what can actually happen in self-pollinators is that they're like, oh, well, I've got genetic male material right there. Let's just drop it in. And so then they self-pollinate, turn into the fruit. Well, in this case, we're talking about peas. Turn into the pea pod. A bunch of peas in the pea pod. Either it gets picked and eaten or falls to the ground, buried, and then grows into a new pea plant. So that's how plant reproduction happens. Sorry? Nope, okay, not for me. So this guy, Gregor Mendel, did his work with pea plants. Pea plants are special because they have the ability to self-fertilize. Fertilize is the language that we're going to talk about in here. Self-fertilize. If they don't get cross-pollinated, they can self-fertilize. And effectively, if they self-fertilize, how are the offspring going to be related to the parents? Sorry? It's theoretically, depending on the genetic material, if the genetic material is pure, they would be effectively genetic clones. But if you start to introduce, so then this is what Gregor Mendel did. He said, okay, well, but pea plants have the ability to self-fertilize. Mendel is the blank right here. What he noticed is that when purple plants self-fertilized, they produced only purple offspring. So he was looking just at a single trait. He was just looking at the color of the flower. And so when purple self-fertilized, all that was produced was purple. That's interesting. He noticed the same thing with white. He allowed the white plants to self-fertilize too. And when the white plants self-fertilized in the first generation, they only produced white offspring. So naturally, Mendel asks himself, well, what happens if I crossbreed them and then allow them to self-fertilize? What happens? So, plants that reproduce with predictable results are called true breeding plants, which makes them ideal for this kind of genetic experimentation. So this is, and Block D was doing this a whole bunch. What we're going to talk about here, do not extrapolate to more complex organisms, like mammals, for example, even insects. Do not extrapolate this to larger, more complex organisms. Plants are plants, plants are easy. Even if plants are a little bit complicated, compared to the higher mammals, us, whales, the whole primate family, really complicated. This is the simplest form that this could happen in. So, Mendel was a scientist at heart. He was a monk, but he was also a scientist. And he decided to do some experiments. He bred true breeding purple plants with true breeding white plants. Rather than allow them to self-fertilize, he actually had the pollinating happen. He took the pollen from the purple and put it into the white. He took the pollen from the white and he put it into the purple. What color do you think the offspring were? Who said yellow? Yellow is not...
In what world do you mix pink or purple and white and get yellow? Lamise, you said pink. I'm going to tweak your answer and say less. I'm not going to call it pink. I'm going to call it light purple. I mean, you could argue that it's the same thing, but I want to be really deliberate about how I choose to use the words here. So light purple or / pink, that is an option. What other options could there be when white and purple breed? Sorry? Just regular dark purple. Yeah, that's another option. Regular white is another option. There's a fourth option. White and purple, which is different than a blend. So the other option is that the flowers are, this is obviously purple, this is obviously white, and they're allowed to both exist together. So purple and white. Those are the four options. There are no others. It's not like you're going to mix them together and get green somehow. That wouldn't work. Or yellow. So let's take a look at what Mendel actually saw. What he saw was that, now we're going to put together some language here first. All of the offspring from the first generation, from the parents, he called the first generation. He called them, that first generation, called F1. These F1 plants, interestingly, came out all purple. So they got white and they got purple code from biological mom plant, biological dad plant. Those were allowed to mix, and the results were that everything came out purple, which is weird. What happened to that white flower trait? The genetic, which is this blank here, the genetic code for white had to have still been there. It got it, because if you remember how genetic code works, you get both halves of a homologous chromosome pair, one from mom, one from dad. So all of the genetic material you got from mom is there, all the genetic material you got from dad is there, and they blend. That's why you look like you. In the plants, it's the same thing. You got the genetic material from mom plant, the genetic material from dad plant, they blend. They're both present. So why was purple the only color that came out of Gen 1? To figure out why that is, and that's a really good question. Like, that's an important question to ask. So what he then did was he said, okay, I'm going to allow Gen 1 to self-fertilize. We're not going to cross-pollinate again. We're just going to say, okay, within your own plant, self-fertilize. And the results were really interesting. In the second generation, which he called F2, he noticed that the white trait reappeared. Underline that word, reappeared. It came back. It skipped a generation and came back, which is weird, in some of the offspring, along with some purple plants. So he went from crossbreeding purple and white. The next generation down was all purple. They were allowed to self-fertilize, and they made purple and white again. The colors split apart again. It's weird. After repeating the experiment a bunch of times, he did hundreds of trials with this. And pea plants can grow really quickly, so you can do that. What he noticed was that 3 out of the 4 plants would be purple. I'm going to write that as a fraction and as a percentage over here. 3/4 is what as a percent? 75%. Very good. And he noticed that 1 out of 4 plants would be white, which is 1/4, which is 25%. And this was the first indication that when both traits, or the code for both traits was present, one of them would dominate the other. And this is where the language of dominance and recessive shows up in genetics, where one trait is powerful enough to entirely cover over the other, even if that other genetic code is still there. We say that that trait is dominant. So then how did the recessive trait show up? It must mean that in some of these offspring, the code for the dominant code was never there. And how that happens is really quite interesting. Flip the page. From these experiments, Mendel proposed a set of laws. And here they are. His laws said that each plant had two factors that act as sets of instructions for each trait. What he calls two factors, what do we call? What do we call the set of factors that try to give instruction for a particular trait? A gene. Soham, you said an allele. Allele is what the gene actually says. So here the gene is flower color. Purple would be one allele. White would be the other allele. Specific representations of the overall gene, which is flower color. So both of you are right. That's his first law. His second law says that each parent donates one of these factors to the offspring. And that in some cases, for some traits, one factor may dominate over the other if the dominant form is present. And this is different for different traits. Some of them, there is a clear-cut dominance recessiveness. Some of them don't have this. And we're going to talk about other forms of dominance and recessiveness as we go on in the chapter. But for now, we're going to start with these concepts. So, the females, there should be an apostrophe in there. The female's eggs, or female's egg, singular, has one set of chromosomes with one set of alleles for each trait. One representation for the gene of each trait. The male's sperm contains the other set of chromosomes with potentially a different set of alleles. Could be the same one, it could be different. When male and female gametes is the language, that is the language of a sex, what's what we call sex cells, gametes. When they meet during fertilization, their DNA combines and the homologous chromosome pairs up. This is, you would have been introduced into these ideas back in grade 9. Oh, grade 8, grade 9. Grade 9. Now, his research seemed to suggest that for some traits, there are alleles that are dominant and that there are alleles that are recessive. And so he was onto something. Now, in some of the stuff that we've looked at, it is one gene. One gene may turn the switch for a trait or the other. But in lots of traits, it's multiple genes that combine in different ways. Mendel was onto something when he said that some traits seem to dominate over others. Alleles have the ability to be either dominant or recessive. As we've seen when we talked about some of the traits you guys demonstrate. And the absence or presence of these alleles determines what trait is seen. Now, in the code, there's 2 copies of everything. And if the dominant one is able to override the recessive one, that means if you have 2 or even just 1 copy, underline those. If you have 2 dominants, obviously it's going to be dominant. But if you have a dominant and a recessive allele that show up together, all you need is just one of those dominant alleles to see the trait that it represents. The only way for a recessive allele to be seen is if there is no dominant allele present, and if you have two of everything. That means if you have a recessive trait, you have to have two copies of the recessive allele. So when you're ready, what I'd like you to do is flip back to the heredity page, those traits that we talked about. Now, in every single one of these boxes, if you look right at the end, there are two letters, an uppercase and a lowercase form of a letter in each one of these boxes. The uppercase one represents the dominant allele. The lowercase one represents the recessive allele. So, real quick, one example. Hands up if you were recessive for tongue rolling. Like me, you cannot roll your tongue. I am recessive. Okay? Luca's the only one who's willing to admit that. I saw more of you, but okay. Luca and I, you and me are both recessive. Cool. What that means is, if we are recessive for that trait, okay, that's none of you. Bell's going to go in 20 seconds. We'll finish that conversation tomorrow. We will finish this later. When the bell goes, you may also go have a great day. Hey, you're all normal. You're all abnormal. Some of you are dominant, some of you are recessive. Get over it. It's neither good nor bad. There are some dominant traits that are really, really bad. There are some recessive traits that are really, really bad. What are some bad dominant traits? An example of here we go. I talked to you about Huntington's disease. I mentioned it briefly. Huntington's is a dominant trait. Huntington's is a dominant trait. If you have one gene, like one allele for Huntington's, that's all you need. You're going to develop Huntington's. You will die. I don't know anything about ear twitching. I know that Huntington's is an example of a dominant trait that will kill you. An example of a recessive one would be something like, sickle cell disease. Are you done listening to me? You must be done listening to me. Okay. You asked for a bad recessive gene. There's a disease called sickle cell anemia. It means, so normally your red blood cells are shaped like circles. In some people with sickle cell anemia, they're shaped like crescents. So it alters how oxygen is actually able to bind to that cell. If you have one parent that is, in your genetic code, if you're given a dominant allele and a recessive allele for sickle cell, because sickle cell is recessive, you can have a dominant and a recessive and be fine. But if you have two recessive for sickle cell, you will have sickle cell anemia, and your blood isn't as good at transferring oxygen. And there are particular people groups that trait shows up in more than other traits. For example, people from Africa seem to carry more of the recessive sickle cell trait than people from like Asia or Europe. I don't know why that is, but that seems to be a trait that is carried by Africans more than Europeans and Asians. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why that is. Have a good day. We'll talk more tomorrow.